feeling more like it today, and we're going to continue to heat up as we head through the weekend. But we could be tracking some spring thunderstorms once again, too. I'll show you when in my pinpoint weather forecast.
No men in women's sports.
I don't know that that has anything to do with voting.
Senators debate an election bill and the amendment President Trump wants added, the Capitol Hill fight spilling into the weekend.
Queen City News starts now.
Crews from South and North Carolina respond to a large superheated industrial fire in Chesterfield County tonight. And it's not the first time the brass factory has had an emergency response. Thank you for joining us on this Friday night at 10. I'm Brian Blakely. That fire started early evening and sent huge, thick black smoke billowing into the air over the town of Pageland that could be seen for miles. It happened at the Alberts Industries facility on South Van Lingle Mungo Boulevard on the town's south side. We understand firefighters have now cleared the scene in the last hour, but there were dozens on hand from several counties battling the blaze most of the night. Want to get right out to South Carolina Bureau Chief Shakira Speaks live outside that factory in Pageland. Shakira, what happened?
Yeah, Brian, like you said, there were more than 10 fire trucks and emergency vehicles on scene here at Albert's Integrated Piping System in Pageland. They've all cleared out now after an industrial fire hit this plant, where officials tell me the fire hit at least 2,200 degrees. Now, we were able to get a few shots that you can see on your screen right now of the scene as crews work to get everything under control. Officials say crews from Chesterfield County and surrounding agencies responded to the call. High Point Fire Chief says that his department sent crews as well, including the Monroe Hazardous Materials Squad. They were also on scene. Fire crews tell me, Brian, that off camera that there were no deaths caused by this fire. Thank goodness. We did find out that this plant has gone through at least 2 more industrial fires in the last 2 years, one in September 2024 and another one in January 2025. We're still working to find out the cause that happened tonight, and when we get that information, we'll be sure to share that on air and online to our viewers. For now, reporting in Pageland, Shakira Speaks, Queen City News.
All right, Shakira, thank you. Tonight, Charlotte-Mecklenburg police say they have a suspect in custody for a reported shootout in the parking lot of a convenience store. They arrested 18-year-old Genesis Petty today. Officers say he was involved in an argument late last night at a 7-Eleven store in Northeast Charlotte that led to an exchange of gunfire. The other person involved was shot in the leg. Petty's charges include assault and carrying a concealed firearm. A judge set his bond at $100,000. Let's get to the weather now on this Friday night, looking at uptown Charlotte from our Arlington camera, as spring is off to a warm start as the season began about 11 hours ago, and it's still feeling very nice outside in the mid-60s. Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane is here. And Tara, the first weekend of spring also could see some storms that we're now thinking could be some severe storms.
A couple of those could indeed turn severe, Brian, and the main threat is going to be hail. It looks like this time around, with any stormy weather that does try and develop later on in the afternoon tomorrow and heading into the evening. But for now, all is quiet, all is dry weather-wise. And here's a look at just how warm we got earlier today. We hit 75 for that top temperature, 10 degrees above average earlier in the Queen City. Lots of 75s, in fact, including Albemarle down through Monroe, Lancaster, Rock Hill. 73 degrees earlier today in Shelby, 75 out there in Chesterfield County, at Cheraw, Morganton too. And then we ended up at 65 up in the mountains at Jefferson. And yeah, right now it still feels pretty nice and comfortable outside, 66 degrees. Southwest breeze still picking up at times at about 10 to 15 miles per hour. Dew points are hovering in the mid-30s, so we're not feeling a high level of humidity yet or anything like that. Widespread 60s across the board here in the Piedmont, with those cooler low and mid-50s right now here at the top of this 10 o'clock hour up in the mountains. We do have a front approaching, low pressure up to the north, and you can see some areas of rain associated with that, but most of that is missing us tonight. We could pick up on maybe an isolated shower or a couple of sprinkles more east of Charlotte early in the morning. morning, but if you have breakfast plans or doing something in the morning, you're going to be out and about through about lunchtime. Looking primarily dry. We'll have some leftover cloud cover that we'll be waking up to, and temperatures, you can see that warm up already starting to happen at lunchtime. We're up around 70 degrees. We're going to be downright hot feeling, near record high temperatures by the end of the weekend, but as we said, that will come with the possibility of some storms. I'll show you a closer look at that timeline coming up in my pinpoint weather forecast in a few minutes.
Tara, thanks. You can stay up to date on the conditions and track rain and storms right down to your neighborhood with our Pinpoint Weather app. It is free to download from the Apple App Store and on Google Play. Deputies say they've recovered the 2 children of a woman shot at a Spartanburg County motel. That incident led to an Amber Alert this afternoon. It all started just before noon today at a roadway inn northwest of Spartanburg. Investigators got a call about the shooting and found the woman in a motel room. A check of surveillance video showed the suspect leaving the room with 2 children. The manager says the family had been staying at the motel for some time.
Yeah, they were cool, not at all, no issues. Yeah, we were shocked at this kind of. I don't think so. They saw how he shot that girl, but they came by themselves and went to the car, and then he came and went into the car.
Spartanburg deputies issued an Amber Alert this afternoon covering both Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. An automated license plate reader detected the suspect's vehicle. In Georgia, deputies there stopped the car, arrested the shooting suspect, and recovered the 4- and 6-year-old children safely. The shooting victim is in critical condition tonight. Newton's deputy police chief is getting a short-term promotion. Major Mark Beal is stepping into the role as the city's interim police chief. The move takes effect 1 week from today. Beal has been in law enforcement for almost 3 decades, starting with the Catawba Police Department. The appointment comes as current chief Vidal Sipe prepares to retire. To Washington now, looking at the nation's Capitol building, where senators will have a working weekend. They'll return to session at noon tomorrow to resume debate over the controversial elections bill. They're also battling over funding for Homeland Security that has been part of the partial shutdown for 7 weeks. Kristen Eskow is following the Senate floor fight tonight.
We know Border Czar Tom Homan has spoken with a group of centrist Democrats on Capitol Hill, but negotiations are still ongoing, and Friday's vote failed 47-37. Despite the long lines at airports across the country, the Senate once again failed to advance a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security.
Americans need and deserve safety and security. The Democrats are preventing it.
Democrats maintain they want to fund all agencies within DHS, except those that handle immigration enforcement.
The chaos at TSA is reaching a boiling point. Negotiations to rein in ICE and end the violence still have a way to go.
The Senate is staying in town through the weekend as it continues debate on the Save America Act, which would require proof of citizenship when registering to vote and a photo ID at the polls.
The Save America Act unites a bunch of common sense policies.
The Senate is set to vote Saturday on an amendment that would add a ban on transgender women in women's sports, as championed by President Trump.
No men in women's sports.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski questioned why those restrictions would be in this bill.
I don't know that that has anything to do with voting.
The overall bill is not expected to receive the 60 votes needed to pass, as Democrats are opposed.
With this proposal, the proof that you have to present of your identity when you register to vote changes dramatically.
The Senate is also expected to take a procedural vote this weekend on Senator Markwayne Mullin's confirmation to become DHS Secretary. That would set up a final vote for Monday. In Washington, I'm Kristen Eskow.
Charlotte City Council members will vote Monday night on a $25 million proposal for improvements to the Bowplex. The money would go toward improving the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems at Bojangles Coliseum and Ovens Auditorium. They also want engineers to assess what other infrastructure at the entertainment complex needs. Both facilities are more than 70 years old. The money would come from the city's tourism tax fund. Council members will hold that vote at 5 Monday afternoon. And moving over to March Madness now, as Queen's University made their NCAA tournament debut tonight. Their run, well, it's going to be a short one as the Purdue Boilermakers take down the Royals 104-71. This was Queen's first year of tournament eligibility after switching to Division I in 2022. Catch all the highlights from that contest coming up on CSL at 11. And down to Darlington right now. You're looking live at the track known as the Lady in Black, South Carolina's Darlington Raceway, a 2-hour drive from southeast Charlotte. Big NASCAR weekend at the 1¼ mile oval. Craftsman Truck Series ran earlier tonight. Got a few people still mingling around, especially on pit row. The O'Reilly Auto Parts Series has its race at 5:30 tomorrow. You can catch that right here on a sister station. The CW Charlotte Cup Series Goodyear 400 is at 3 Sunday afternoon here on Queen City News. And fans are out in full force this weekend, which will feature several drivers with throwback paint schemes on their cars. One of those is Joey Logano, and he's hoping that he has a throwback to 2022 when he last won at Darlington. He hasn't had that same success returning to South Carolina, including in the Southern 500. Logano says the egg-shaped track is hard to figure out.
You know, it's not one of those places you ever feel comfortable, if I'm being honest, because you're constantly chasing the car, the laps, wear tires out so quickly that, you know, what you did the lap before, if you replicate it, you hit the wall because the tires fall off. So you got to, you know, always be adjusting every lap and trying to, you know, figure out where that edge is.
Several NASCAR legends will be at the track this weekend, including Hall of Famers Mark Martin, Kurt Busch, Harry Gant, and others.
How about that weather down there for the race on Sunday? I'll give you a hint. It's going to be hot, like what we're going to be feeling all over the Carolinas by the end of the weekend. Near record heat, and that's going to come with some possible weekend storms, too. I'll show you a closer look at that timeline when we could see those developing. That's next.
More measles exposures, this time in North Carolina, Piedmont, where health officials think where they may have think it came from. And major flooding leads to power outages and homes taken off their foundations in Hawaii. The evacuation's underway in Honolulu.
And coming up on Carolina Sports Live, we have final scores and updates from the men and women's NCAA tournaments, as well as an update to the Panthers roster as a new addition was just added. We'll have more on CSL at 11.
Panthers adding again. I love it. All right, Casey, we'll see you in a little bit. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. Health leaders are looking to spread the word as more measles exposures pop up in central North Carolina. Tiana Maxwell tells us what medical experts are finding.
We know that somebody's contagious a few days before, like 3 to 4 days before the rash onset, and then 4 days after the rash onset is like that most contagious period.
The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services confirmed that a case of the measles passed through golf courses in Cumberland, Moore, and Randolph counties. That includes one person infected with measles who passed through the Tot Hill Farm Golf Club in Randolph County between 8 a.m. to noon on March 12th. A case also appeared in Guilford County as officials say an out-of-state resident who tested positive for measles visited a Wendy's on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive the next day at a time between 5 to 10 p.m. Guilford County officials say what we're seeing may be a result of seasonal travel.
People have a tendency of traveling during these periods of time. And so we might get an occasional traveler come through that might have been or is infected with an illness.
Now medical experts are urging families to stay up to date on their vaccines.
Several decades ago, they thought that, adults only needed one dose. However, that probably is not effective enough, and that's why they changed the childhood vaccine schedule to require 2 doses. One at 1 year old and one between 4 and 5 years old, and that can last for a long time.
A golf trip to North Carolina's Sandhills are also raising measles concerns among health officials. They say an out-of-state visitor tested positive for the illness. Doctors say that patient was contagious while playing golf in both Fayetteville and Aberdeen. People who are at those golf courses could have been exposed even without direct contact. Measles spreads through the air and can linger in space even after someone leaves.
Typically, the range where someone is contagious is 4 days before the onset of rash, all the way through 4 days after the onset of rash. So we're looking at any potential contacts they may have had within that range.
Health professionals say the best defense is the MMR vaccine, calling it safe and effective. CMPD needs your help to find a fugitive tonight. A man wanted for an armed robbery with a knife. Detectives say it happened on Central Avenue January 24th. The suspect got away with an undisclosed amount of cash and then assaulted a second victim while getting away.
You recognize that suspect, we want you to call Crime Stoppers and let us know. Or if you know where he lives but you don't know his name, we need that information as well.
If you recognize who this man is, call Crime Stoppers or submit an anonymous tip to the P3 Tips app. There is a cash reward for any info leading to an arrest. CMPD also needs your help identifying this man. He is a person of interest in a deadly shooting on Central Avenue, January 24th. Detectives say the victim, Ludwin Antonio Guzman Morales, was found lying in the street near Sheridan Drive, dead from several gunshot wounds. If you recognize who this man is, call Crime Stoppers. Homes pushed off their foundations and swallowed vehicles were the result of floodwaters in Hawaii, and now evacuation orders are in effect. Officials near Honolulu now warn that the floodwaters could lead to the failure of a 120-year-old dam. There were no immediate reports of deaths or injuries from the heavy rain and storms, but officials on jet skis were out earlier searching for survivors.
Respectfully, it's a very, very dynamic situation. It's a difficult situation. We are asking everybody to just respectfully listen to law enforcement.
Officials say the water levels have not hit that level to suggest an imminent failure of the dam, and says thankfully these flood levels are beginning to go down. Let's talk about the weather in our area right now as we look at downtown Gastonia tonight. First night of spring, and it definitely felt like it today and even into tonight. Warm temperatures are only going to get warmer this weekend. Let's talk with Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane, who unfortunately is now going to be talking about a little bit a risk of some severe weather that could pop up tomorrow afternoon.
Not everywhere, just in a few select areas, mainly down there in South Carolina. So you live in the South Carolina communities, Chester County, York County, Lancaster County, and even a little bit west of Charlotte in that slightly more favored zone for getting possibly hail-producing thunderstorms tomorrow. That's going to be the main threat out of any severe storms.
Be weather
tomorrow.
Aware, and we'll mess up possibly the Charlotte FC game tomorrow night.
Hopefully it'll
Probably
stay
not.
away. I know for everyone out there, the fans and the players, of course, but we'll just be watching for that because that's kind of the time frame, late afternoon and evening, where we could be tracking some of those downpours and storms. But we have nothing of the sort as we look live in Banner Elk tonight. Pretty tranquil conditions weather-wise. We have some clouds that have been streaming in overhead ahead of an approaching cold front. but most of the rain showers associated with that system staying to the north and east. Again, with that particular system, we get another vigorous disturbance coming in tomorrow that will bring us that storm threat. But right now, again, 66 degrees. Yes, feels pretty nice outside this time of the night, this time of the year. Southwest breeze at about 13 miles per hour. We've got the relative humidity at 33%. Most areas are still sitting in the 60s, from 62 in Albemarle to 64 in Wadesboro, 61 for you all around Fort Mill and Rock Hill and Chester. Shelby's at 64, now dipping into the upper 50s in Morganton, and low and mid 50s up in the higher elevations. Scattered showers again continue. You can see the green there from Richmond, Virginia, and affecting, say, the Finger counties in the northeastern corner of the Tar Heel State, and a little bit closer to that area of low pressure and the trailing cold front. But we just have, for the most part, the cloud cover drifting in from the north. So partly to mostly cloudy overall tonight, and this is what you're going to be waking up to in the morning. Not so bad, certainly compared to earlier in the week when we had some 20s and 30s out there. 50s all around from the mountains and heading east toward the Sandhills. We're going to heat up even more. 80 degrees tomorrow ahead of any sort of cooling showers or storms. 57 for Sunday morning. Sunday is the totally dry half of the weekend and hotter as well. Look at that, 87 degrees. That would be 2 degrees away from tying the record of 89 from back in the early 1900s. And look at that, compared to average, more than 20 degrees above average. So here we go, heating up once again, feeling a little more like summertime. Now let's address the severe risk for tomorrow. You can see this darker shading of green indicating that level 1 out of 5 risk. So it's not a terribly high risk. We're not looking at a widespread outbreak of storms, but basically from around the Charlotte metro, south and west, and maybe a little bit to the east there near Highway 74. That's where we could get some of those hail producing storms. So let's check it out. Again, early in the morning, really not too much out there, if anything at all, maybe a couple of sprinkles or a stray shower. But by 5 p.m. tomorrow, look at this. So the more favored zone, as I said, is going to be in our South Carolina communities, Lancaster County, Chester, Rock Hill. Stay weather aware, and if you can, maybe bring your car inside if you have a garage or a carport or something like that if you do start to hear those rumbles of thunder or maybe a storm blowing in your direction, because that could produce maybe some quarter-sized hail. We could see some areas of rain around, say, Gaston or Cleveland County as well through about 8 to 11 o'clock or so at night. But again, noticing most of that activity south and west of Charlotte. 6 a.m. Sunday morning, everything's over and done with, and it's back to sunshine to wrap up the weekend and heat, including if you're headed out there to the Goodyear 400. Darlington Raceway firing up at 3 p.m. on Sunday, going for about 86 degrees down there. Lots of sunshine, though, with the breeze out of the west-southwest at about 5 to 15 miles per hour. There's that 7-day forecast. So after this hotter weekend, next week starts warm up to 81. Then we get a weaker front coming in here for Monday. Isolated shower, perhaps a thunderstorm, breezy conditions, but behind that front, that's going to knock back temperatures back into the 60s just for a couple of days, though, for Tuesday and Wednesday.
A historic first for Charlotte Douglas International Airport, the really long distance flights that kicked off today. And honoring the life of a Navy SEAL from North Carolina, how his family came up with a challenge that reflected his love of the outdoors. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. It's a historic first for Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Non-stop service to Abu Dhabi took off today, marking the longest flight ever from the airport. It comes in the middle of the Iran war and its spillover to other Persian Gulf countries. The new connection goes 7,400 miles, halfway around the world, and could be a game changer for families traveling to the Middle East. Queen City News anchor Jen Cardone spoke with spectators who waited a year for the flight to take off.
You can find just about anything at the airport overlook, from onlookers to future pilots.
I'm feeling really excited and pumped up to see the plane take off.
Sixth grader Anderson Felix is that future pilot. He found out that Etihad Airways would start flying to and from Charlotte Douglas International on Instagram and has been waiting a year to watch the first flight.
I put it on my calendar and I'm like, Mom, we gotta go see this plane.
CLT launched new nonstop service to Abu Dhabi Friday with the airline. It's the airport's first new foreign flag carrier since 2018. It will also be the airport's longest route at more than 14 hours. This is now the most direct way to the Middle East.
It's like a dream come true that this is happening here.
Saad Khan has family there and usually makes the trip twice a year.
We used to go from here to New York, Washington, D.C., or other airports, but now this reduces also travel time too, from like 26 hours to like 21.
A game changer to connect North Carolina across the globe. He will use it next week to get to Pakistan.
We have a big community here that connects to that area, to South Asia, East Asia, and Abu Dhabi is an international hub where they have so many flights.
The flight now operates 4 days a week. Jen Cardone, Queen City News.
Blurring the lines between investment and sports betting, the controversial new partnership between the MLB and Polymarket. A martial arts and TV legend dies at 86. The life and legacy of Chuck Norris coming up. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. Critics are bashing a new partnership between Major League Baseball and prediction market platform Polymarket. As Xavier Walton reports tonight, some are worried it blurs the lines between investing and gambling.
So right now we're witnessing Major League Baseball lean even further into the gambling world with a slight twist, or I guess you can call it somewhat of a curveball. This isn't traditional sports book. This is a prediction market where users trade on outcomes, sort of like stocks. All right, so here's how it works. MLB naming Polymarket its official prediction market partner. The agreement gives Polymarket access to MLB logos, official league data, and lets fans bet on outcomes like who wins or what happens next. But unlike traditional betting, these are yes or no trades like in the financial markets. MLB says this is about fan engagement, but also about control. The league is working with federal regulators to write new rules and build an integrity framework. They're watching for red flags, limiting high-risk markets that could potentially threaten game integrity, like individual pitches or umpire calls. But not everyone is on board. Some believe this is merely just a cover and sports betting just with a different name, a different hat, if you will. So critics, what they're worried about is kind of, to a degree, what investing in gambling will do moving forward. So critics say, in their eyes, the American Gaming Association concerned that the prediction markets may skirt the state gambling rules traditional sports books follow, but the markets insist they'll fall under federal oversight.
We intend to set clear rules of the road for this new asset class and these new markets. And it's really important that we don't have manipulation and insider trading and all sorts of abuse in our derivatives markets.
So the next thing to watch for is if other professional sports leagues follow Major League Baseball. Also, whether lawmakers are going to step in as these prediction markets continue to grow.
North Carolina Governor Josh Stein is giving $8.5 million to small businesses in the western part of the state. The third round of grants focuses on helping infrastructure affected by Hurricane Helene. Stein says the state has only gotten a fraction of what other states receive for similar disasters. Representative Lindsay Prather says she knows firsthand about how much the area needs the money.
Local governments, communities, municipalities, counties out here in Western North Carolina are having to cover a lot of the funding gap. And so, yes, we have been waiting for federal money. We are also waiting for some, more money from the legislature in Raleigh that hasn't passed a budget yet.
Grants also come as the region welcomes more tourists for the spring and summer. Old Dominion University is sending a survey to students asking them to disclose any past criminal convictions. That request comes 1 week after the campus shooting that left an ROTC instructor dead. Karina Garcia has the students' reaction.
Why a person that had terrorist connections like that was allowed to be walking the streets of Hampton Roads.
Investigators say the gunman, Mohammed Jallo, was not a stranger to the system, a former Virginia National Guardsman and an ODU student, previously serving time for ties to ISIS before being released in 2024. As students prepare to return to class Monday, the university now sending out a criminal history questionnaire to those enrolled.
I think definitely that would help seeing what sort of population we have.
Virginia law blocks public universities from considering criminal records during admissions, but after a student is accepted, schools can look into that history and remove an offer for safety concerns. ODU says a past conviction won't automatically lead to punishment, and each case will be reviewed individually. Still, the questionnaire does come with some gray areas. Students are strongly encouraged to fill it out by March 26th, but it's not explicitly required.
There are adults who had kids, families, a life before they even went to college, who've been here that maybe are actually trying to bounce back their lives because they could have went to jail for some crime unknown to us, so it really should not be a requirement.
The university is saying in part they are confident students will recognize the importance of completing it.
For the second weekend, the town of Virginia Beach is implementing a 7 p.m. curfew for unaccompanied minors. City officials say the change is in the name of public safety. Curfew runs from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. for anyone under the age of 17. But attorney Kevin Martingale says the teenagers aren't the problem.
It's not the 17, 16, and 15-year-olds who are causing any of those problems. So that's a distraction. You've got a problem with adult behavior, deal with the adult behavior.
Martingale wrote an email to the city about the curfew. They responded saying the curfew is in the interest of public safety and existing ordinances are reactive, not proactive. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace is back from the Middle East tonight after a trip to that region to help a nonprofit group bring American families home. Mace had state approval to use Homeland Security Department plane to bring home 155 families. Republican candidate for governor says getting those people home is at the top of her to-do list.
Evacuating Americans is our priority right now, and it should be, and it will continue to be that priority.
The Israeli airline El Al made a deal with the U.S. government to fly Americans home. Through half of those flights were canceled today. Long lines at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta continue due to the ongoing TSA shortages and the Homeland Security Department shutdown. Travelers are advised to get to the Atlanta airport hours before their flights just to make sure they get through security in time. The lines for security are reaching as far back as the airport's baggage claim area. One passenger says she took every step she could to avoid the logjam.
5 hours early because I knew that the line is going to be long, but I didn't expect it to be this long. So the website said it's like 5 minutes wait, but end up when I saw it, it's 60 minutes. I'm so glad I got here early.
TSA workers are considered essential, but they're going without pay during the DHS shutdown. That's leading to call-outs by the hundreds. It is the second time they've had to work without pay since the end of September. Chris Campbell of Jacksonville, North Carolina, lost his life overseas during a military mission in Afghanistan. And after that happened, his family wanted to do something to remember the Navy SEAL and outdoorsman. As Olivia Wolfson reports tonight, the family created the Frogman Challenge.
He was just an amazing human.
Chris Campbell was a Navy SEAL from Jacksonville. His sister-in-law, Terry Campbell, described him as humble and an outdoorsman. But in 2011, Chris and 30 others lost their lives during a mission in Afghanistan.
My husband, Chris's brother, was actually overseas in Australia. So I had to, I had to be the one to call him and tell him it was the hardest. That was probably the hardest day that I've ever had to tell Lee that his brother was killed. One of his wishes was that people would give to combat wounded veterans. We were trying to think, what could we do to help them make that wish come true?
It's called the Frogman Challenge, offering both an archery shoot and 5K trail walk to raise money to help combat wounded veterans. This year's proceeds will go to SE Outdoors, a group that helps disabled veterans do outdoor sports.
Chris loved bow hunting, so he was really getting into it. He would take his bow with him overseas. So we came up with this concept of doing an archery shoot, and that's how it started. And it started at our property. It was a small event. The reason we have 31 targets is because there were 31 American heroes that lost their lives that day on August 11th. Chris was among them, along with a working dog, Bart, who also has a target out here, and then the other American heroes that lost their lives.
Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission now also helps put on the event. This year, over 200 archery shooters and 500 runners are expected to participate.
That's why I do this. This keeps Chris alive, and just remember him. He's just an amazing human. That's all. He's just an amazing human being.
Investigators responded to a shocking scene in Los Angeles, rescuing hundreds of dogs from a hoarding situation. Officials say it may be the largest animal rescue operation in U.S. history. They removed about 700 dogs and cats from the L.A. property. More than 70 animal care and control workers responded to the site.
Most of the animals are kept in cages, crates, and without water inside the crates. We have reports of intermittent feeding. It's very filthy. Our staff have to wear respirators and hazmat suits to go into the property.
Veterinary teams cared for the animals on scene. Those in critical condition immediately were sent to LA area pet hospitals. He was an Air Force veteran, taught martial arts to Steve McQueen, faced off against Bruce Lee, and became a movie and TV star. Chuck Norris died yesterday after what his family called a medical emergency. Melvin Roberts shows us his legacy in popular culture.
Well. What in the hell do you want, Glover?
Norris Norris was perhaps best known for his role on the long-running CBS show Walker, Texas Ranger.
Texas Rangers, how are ya?
Norris quickly gained a reputation for being a tough guy both on and off the screen. When the work slowed down after the end of Walker, Texas Ranger, his tough-as-nails persona lived on in the form of internet memes like this one. Chuck Norris doesn't call the wrong phone number, you answered the wrong phone. The actor's death was announced on his Instagram page this morning. His family wants to keep the circumstances of his death private, though they say he was surrounded by his family and he was at peace. He's remembered as a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, and as a man who inspired millions through his work, discipline, and kindness. Norris was born in Oklahoma in 1940 and was a veteran of the United States Air Force. During his service, while he was stationed at an air base in South Korea, he developed a passion for martial arts. He went on to win tournaments and competitions. After that, he found fame in small acting roles before having a breakthrough with The Way of the Dragon. He was hospitalized in Hawaii earlier this week after suffering a medical emergency and passed away early on Thursday morning. Norris was 86 years old. What a life and what a legacy.
We check that weather here on this Friday evening, and we're still looking dry for now. Temperature's pretty pleasant outside. It's just going to be heating up even more as we head throughout the weekend, feeling a little more like summertime, and that could come with some thunderstorms as well. I'll show you a timeline on that next.
From white collar to blue collar, how artificial intelligence is driving some workers out of cubicles and into different lines of work. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. Between data centers and technology geared toward making everyday life more convenient, artificial intelligence is making more of an impact. That includes the workforce. Industry executives predict AI tech could shake up half of the entry-level white-collar workforce. As Madison Forsey reports, it has some Americans switching to blue-collar roles.
You know, I'm so tired of sitting behind a computer, being in meetings all day.
Donna Smith is done with a desk job.
At the end of the day, you can take a piece of wood or a piece of steel and see your accomplishments.
She went from IT specialist to project manager to managing herself, deciding to focus on a trade.
I worked for a large company here, and one day I'd been there for 6 years, and 32 middle management people like myself got laid off one swoop, just like that.
Donna had the chance to choose her own path before that happened, deciding to learn carpentry at GTCC to grow her home rehab business. But so many don't have the choice.
Anywhere between 5 to 10 people.
That's how many new GTCC students Chris Sizemore has seen enroll who were laid off because of AI in the last year.
People want to be sure that they're secure in their job, make sure that something cannot take over their job. And AI can't take over everything. There still needs to be a human element.
Data released from the AI company Anthropic shows the share of job tasks these language learning models could perform. Jobs in computer and math, business and finance, office and admin, and management had the highest shares, while grounds maintenance, food and serving, agriculture and construction had the least.
People were really concerned about companies like Google and Amazon coming in and taking you out.
That was almost a decade ago when brothers Jim and Jack Sutton started to see a change.
I kept coming back to trade jobs because I really felt in the end of the day, it's a big people business, and there's just no way around having people who have to put their hands on something to fix it.
They chose to buy a plumbing and HVAC company after working most of their lives in white-collar jobs. It's a people-centered business, and they're using AI to enhance it with an automated answering service overnight.
We don't look at it, there's nothing adversarial about it. We look at it as something to embrace and to really search for the next real good solution for us.
Besides the job security, these hands-on trades come with a bigger payday.
So I had one young lady, she was an English teacher, and she said when she got into the trades, her salary actually doubled.
And a sense of accomplishment.
We can walk away and say, you know, we built a frame and we're going to put up doors and windows. Last week, we built a set of stairs.
First day of spring is wrapping up and the season is off to a great start. Lots of people turned out today at Freedom Park in Charlotte to enjoy the sun and warmth, and they told us they couldn't wait for temperatures to rise so they could get outside.
Honestly, it gives me life, honestly.
Yeah, I'm a people person, so I love seeing people, talking to people, and seeing them just live their life. It's cool.
Freedom Park is a good spot to do it. Park goers took walks, rode bikes, picnicked, and some just laid on the grass to catch a few rays. Good day to do it. What about the rest of the week here? As we're going to take a live look at King Street in Boone tonight, where we're in for a warm kickoff to spring. Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane is here, and tomorrow we could see some strong storms. All depends on where you live, though.
That's right. It's south and west of Charlotte, so South Carolina communities and areas around, say, maybe Cleveland County, and even up toward the mountains. We'll have to watch for some of those developing downpours and storms. We could use the rain, but we don't want hail-producing storms, which is what could happen tomorrow.
And it could be warm, though.
Yes.
It will be warm.
Definitely going to be warm. We're going to be up around 80 degrees and even near 90 by the end of the weekend on Sunday. And I will tell you right now, if you're thinking of, okay, what's the best day to do something outside, if you want to hit the park, have a picnic out there or take a hike or something like that, Sunday is the totally dry half of the weekend. And tomorrow, a lot of you will still squeeze out a dry day, including most likely up here around the Lake Norman zone, up here in Cornelius. We're looking live, Freedom Boat Club area. I suspect that we'll see a lot of boats out there and jet skis and paddle boarders and kayakers on there on the water here this week. Water's still, of course, a little cool, but the air temperature will definitely be feeling pretty warm out there. Spring officially, yes, did spring earlier today at 10:46 in the morning. So tomorrow, I guess we can call the first full day of spring and the first weekend of spring, of course. 75 degrees, certainly felt like it today. 10 degrees above average, but still 10 degrees away from hitting that record today on this 20th day of March of 85 from back in the 1940s. 38 was a low this morning, and we will not cool down nearly as much come tomorrow morning. We're still in the 60s right now, low mid 60s area wide. We've got the upper 50s heading up into Burke County around Morganton, up through Lenoir as well, and low and mid 50s up there at Boone and into Ashe County around Jefferson. We have seen the cloud cover rolling in since earlier today, and a little bit of rain too, especially over the northeastern corner of the state, moving in ahead of this cold front, but most of that at least that round of showers stays away from us into the night. And tomorrow morning still largely dry. A couple sprinkles maybe can't be totally ruled out, but we will be waking up to some cloud cover. Temperatures, though, you can see already warming up. I mean, lunchtime, we're up around 70 degrees or in the low 70s. So the warm up continues from there. Several more hours of heating to go. So weekend heat and possible storms. Big weather story for the weekend. Tomorrow, we're up around 80 degrees eventually into the afternoon. Scattered clouds mixing in with that little bit of sunshine, and watching for a few storms, including for the Charlotte FC New York Red Bulls match. Kickoff at 7:30 tomorrow evening over Bank of America Stadium. It is possible we could get a shower, an isolated storm, but again, the majority of the activity will likely stay more south and west of Charlotte. 75 degrees at kickoff. Temperatures feeling nice if you're headed out to the match, only cooling into the high 60s toward the second half. So the severe risk tomorrow is low, but not zero, as we say. And as I said, focus from around the Charlotte metro south and west. And the main threat will be quarter-sized hail. So that's certainly enough to do some damage if we do see those. Again, not too much going on tomorrow morning, early afternoon, mid to late afternoon, 4, 5, 6 o'clock and beyond. We'll watch for some of those developing storms. And you can see on the map those bright colors, Chester County and York County, Lancaster County, Chesterfield County, definitely in the more favored zone for seeing that storm development. But some activity could try and kind of clip parts of Burke County or Gaston or Cleveland County. So basically south and west of Charlotte through about midnight or so. Everything clears out though for Sunday, and it's back to sunshine for the rest of the weekend. And this will add up to a little more rain south and west, up to 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. But really, and notice this is over the course of the next 7 days, largely dry still for most of our area. Again, that record on Sunday, 89 degrees, 87, just 2 degrees away from tying that. 67 for you all in the mountains tomorrow with that low chance of a shower or storm. Sunday's dry, 76. And notice how we're turning just a little bit cooler again, back in the 50s in the mountains by next Tuesday and Wednesday. We get a weaker front coming in for early next week on Monday. So that's going to drop temperatures only into the low and mid 60s for just a couple of days.
Tara, thank you. So a new pup is rising in the ranks. The new report showing dachshunds are becoming quite the hot dog with Americans. Casey Funderburg joining us right now, who says this dog is the hottest dog around.
Yeah, I think Cookie, an English Cocker Spaniel, should be climbing the ranks, but whatever, maybe I'm a little bit biased. But coming up on Carolina Sports Live, we're not going to have Cookie, unfortunately, but we are going to have a lot of hoops to get to, including Queens, who took on Purdue in its first NCAA tournament run. We also got to check out the women's tournament, NC State, North Carolina, Duke, all on the court today. The Panthers are still making some off-season news. We had a couple roster updates to get to, but it's March, so expect a lot of basketball, pros, and the college level coming up here shortly on Carolina Sports Live.
And we got Cookie too.
Yes,
yeah.
and Cookie.
Go ahead, your big debut today. All right, good deal. Stay right there. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. We're a pet-friendly station, aren't we? We love it.
We are. She
love
loves
Cookie
it here.
Tonight's Dog Report. A new study shows Americans are still high on French bulldogs, retrievers, and German shepherds, but moving up fast on the list is dachshunds. For the first time in more than 20 years, the wiener dogs cracked the top 5 for the most prevalent dog breed. American Kennel Club rankings released today, and it covers 202 different breeds. French bulldogs still top the list, but the registry only added about 54,000 last year, half as many as 2023.
Our culture loves our labs and our goldens, and that is always going to be true. They're in the fabric of who we are. And the Frenchie holds tight. I think that it holds tight because of the way we live, more so than it just being a cute dog. It is compatible with apartment living, and many of us live in apartments right now.
AKC has added more than 50 types of dog to its roster of recognized breeds since 2000. Stay right there. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. We'll be right back with a final check of your pinpoint forecast, followed by Carolina Sports Live.
Going to be a nice start to the weekend tomorrow morning, but tomorrow afternoon, stay weather aware, especially if you live in South Carolina, areas west of Charlotte toward Gaston, Cleveland County. A couple of stronger storms with possible hail. Yeah, some of those could develop into the afternoon and evening, but Sunday is totally dry, hotter, 87. Then it gets cooler for a couple of days next week.
Yeah, good looking weekend. Enjoy for sure. CSL coming up next.
Now, it's CSL, Carolina Sports Live.
All right, now on Carolina Sports Live, the Charlotte Hornets are humming so far in its 6-game homestand. 2 for 2 so far with Memphis